I think it's almost inarguable that mixed martial arts is the sport with the most resilient athletes on earth. And inside the sport with the most resilient athletes, I believe there is one division specifically that shows the most resiliency of any division in the entire sport, and that's the heavyweight division. Everybody likes to joke around about how the heavyweight division is full of dinosaurs and older guys, and it's true. There's a ton of great guys over 35 in the division, and a lot of guys that can compete at 40 plus. Think about Daniel Cormier, the current champion of the division, is 40 years old. Stipe Miocic, I believe, is 35 years old, and he's challenging for the title. And you just got so many older guys who have suffered brutal knockouts in their career, and yet they keep coming forward. You think that certain guys like a Junior Dos Santos, think about it, after all those wars with Cain Velasquez, everybody thought he didn't have it anymore. He didn't have the tenacity anymore. He couldn't take the damage anymore. And then he's had a second and third live in the division. Think about Alistair Overeem. Overeem's been knocked out damn near 20 times, I'm sure. And he's been on strings of losses where me and everybody in the media all counted him out and assumed that he just didn't have a chin anymore. He couldn't get any more significant wins under his belt, and he's proven that that's definitely wrong. But inside a sport of the most resilient athletes, and inside a division in a sport that is the most resilient, I think there is one fighter who shows resiliency above and beyond anybody else, and that was a fighter who fought last Saturday night. That fighter is Andrei Arlovski. Now, if you're a longtime fan of the sport like myself, you might remember all the way back to the trilogy fight with Tim Sylvia. Now, if you don't remember that, Andre had won the first fight against Tim Sylvia for the UFC title by submission, and then Sylvia won the second fight by TKO. And in the third fight, it was a terrible fight. I mean, it was just a staring match. It was almost like a Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou type of fight, where both guys seemed apprehensive and gun shy, but particularly Arlovski seemed really, really apprehensive and really gun shy. He seemed to be maybe a little bit shook from his last loss to Sylvia, where he was TKO'd. And a lot of people thought that Andrei Arlovski might have been done after that. That was 13 years ago. 13 years ago, people were talking about Andrei Arlovski being done. It's pretty wild. I'm just going to go through Andrei's record since then. He goes on a winning streak after that, 3 in a row in the UFC, wins against Ben Rothwell in Affliction, and then Roy Nelson, controversially, in Elite XC. And then he takes on... So he wins 5 in a row after that Tim Sylvia fight, proving that obviously he's not done. That's his second life in the sport. I'm going to call lives and deaths. So he had his first death against Tim Sylvia. People were counting him out, and then he has a second life after that. So then after that second life where he wins 5 in a row, you notice another significant losing streak where he gets KO'd by Fedor Emelianenko. He was doing well in that fight, but he got viciously knocked out. And then he gets TKO'd by Brett Rogers, which was brutal. If you guys remember Brett Rogers, he was just devastating at the time. Decision to Antonio Silva, and then he got just stiffened by Sergey Haratonov. I remember that in the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix. He was stiff as a board. It was like when Askren went out. So he loses 4 in a row there, 3 of them by violent knockout. And I remember after that thinking, okay, Arlovski definitely, he had a second run there, but his chin is worn out now. He should probably retire before he takes more damage. He's 15-9 in his career at that point. He has nothing left to prove. He was already a UFC champion. That's what me and, frankly, the entire media was thinking about Arlovski's career at that point. That was in 2011. That was 8 years ago, 8.5 years ago, February 2011. After that, Arlovski goes on a run in smaller promotions, getting a TKO and a KO, no contest to Tim Sylvia in 1FC, the 5th 1FC show. Then he fights in the first World Series of Fighting show, wins, and then gets another win. So he goes 4 and with 1 no contest, 4 wins and 1 no contest over his next 5 fights. So he's showing, after his second death, he's showing a third life. It was really, really impressive. He has a quick loss to Anthony Johnson. No shame there. He actually lost by decision. I believe he broke his jaw in that fight too, and against Anthony Johnson. So he was proving that, he has a jaw. It might be broken, but it can still freaking take a punch. And then you look, he goes on a continuous win streak after that, beating Mike Kyle, somebody in a smaller promotion, getting his invite back to the UFC finally. And he beats Brennan Schaub controversially, KOs Antonio Silva, avenging that loss, TKOs Travis Brown in one of the greatest fights in UFC history, and then beats Frank Mir. So over the course, since he got knocked out by Sergey Haratonov, he wins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He wins 10 fights, one no in that stretch, one no contest to Tim Sylvia, one no contest to Anthony Johnson. 10, 1, and 1. That is an impressive streak. And then you'll notice he goes on another 5-fight losing streak after that. So after he had defeated Frank Mir to end that streak, Stipe Miocic TKOs him, obviously, heavyweight champion. So Arlovski had worked his way up to the tip of the division again. And once he got to the tip of the division, he just couldn't exactly compete. He gets TKO'd by Alistair Overeem after that, submitted by Josh Barnett, TKO'd by Francis Ngannou. Oh my gosh. And then Marcin Tybura beats him by unanimous decision. So that's 5 losses in a row. 4 of them finishes, 3 of them extremely bad TKOs. So, I after that, it was like, okay, well, Arlovski's definitely done now, 5 losses in a row. If he had a smaller name, and if he was in any other division, he would have been cut after 3 losses, let alone 4, let alone 5, and getting a 6th opportunity after that, getting another UFC fight after 5 losses in a row. That's only because the heavyweight division is shallow. So he really benefited from a lack of depth in the division and then from having a big name. Everybody thought he was done after those 5 losses, but he manages to get decision wins over Stefan Struve and Junior Albini after that, before going on another 4-fight losing streak. One of them was overturned against Walt Harris because Walt Harris tested positive. And then he wins last Saturday night. So if you look at Arlovski's career, there's kind of a trend, so he has this first death to the consecutive Tim Sylvia losses. Then he goes on a winning streak, has a second life, gets his second death, losing to Fedor, Rogers, Bigfoot, and Haritonov. And then he has his third life. That's right? Yeah, third life. After that, going on probably his best streak of his career, 10-1-1. And then he loses 5 in a row, wins a couple, loses 4 in a row. One of them was a no contest, so not really a loss. So if you notice, Arlovski seems to, he doesn't win one, lose one, win one, lose one. He wins in streaks and he loses in streaks. Now, if you saw his performance on Saturday night, he looked sensational against Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell is obviously a little bit over the hill and whatnot. But, Arlovski doesn't need to be competing against these top 15 guys in the UFC. I think that if the UFC matches up Arlovski properly, the way that they should, and give him a few guys outside of the top 15, as long as Arlovski wants to hang around, keep giving him those kinds of guys, let him be a gatekeeper to the top 15. I think we could see another win streak by Arlovski. On Saturday night, his jab looked the best it's ever looked in his career. He was so fast. He was hitting hard. Sure, he was exhausted at the end of the fight, but I really don't know if anybody other than Ben Rothwell, maybe 1 or 2 other guys, are going to be able to take the kind of damage that Arlovski was dishing out. So I think that most people wouldn't get to the end of 15 minutes for Arlovski to be exhausted the way that Rothwell did. So I don't think there's no cardio issue. And if you look, his last Dominic Cruz was mentioning this in the during the commentary. I couldn't believe it. His last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights have all gone to decision at heavyweight. That's unbelievable for a guy who we thought had no chin, thought was probably done. He's got 9 lives. This guy's a cat. It's not a pit bull. It should be the lion or something. 8 consecutive decisions, though, at heavyweight. That has to be a record. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into this. I'm not sure how you would look into it. You would have to go through maybe everybody's record who's ever fought in the UFC heavyweight division. 8 has to be a UFC record at the heavyweight division. So he's not taking damage. He's showing resiliency with his ability to bounce back here. Could we have an extra life for Andrei Arlovski? Is he the most resilient fighter in UFC history? He's got the most wins in the UFC heavyweight division of all time, most fights in the UFC heavyweight division of all time. And you have to think that these guys are hitting the hardest, and he's been knocked out 10 times in his career. I mean, we could see him build on a Hall of Fame resume here. I think he's got another life left in the tank. All right, guys, please comment if you like the video. Please like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to my channel. And yeah, most importantly, comment. I want to get a discussion going here with anybody who's watching these videos. We can have a back and forth dialogue. I really appreciate any viewership that I have. Follow me at Empey Talks on Twitter. I'm not really using the Instagram and Facebook too much yet. I'm trying to build the Twitter audience, so you can follow me over there. Cheers, guys.